The 100 days of President Trump, and he's been describing it as very exciting and very productive, his first 100 days in office. And of course, he was marking it at a rally in Pennsylvania.
He told supporters there that he was keeping one promise after another, and he attacked journalists, dismissing their criticisms as fake news.
If the media's job is to be honest and tell the truth, then I think we would all agree the media deserves a very, very big, fat failing grade.
Mr. Trump decided to hold the rally to celebrate his first 100 days instead of going to the annual White House Correspondents Dinner.
Yeah, he is the first president to miss the event since Ronald Reagan in 1981. And, well, Mr. Trump's absence was noted.
We gotta address the elephant that's not in the room. The leader of our country is not here. And that's because he lives in Moscow. It is a very long flight. It'd be hard for Vlad to make it. Vlad can't just make it on a Saturday. It's a Saturday. As for the other guy, I think he's in Pennsylvania because he can't take a joke.
Well, joining us now from Washington is Anneke E, a former speechwriter for George W. Bush. And Anneke, you're still in your dress because you were at that White House Correspondents' Dinner, were you? Was it strange not having the president there?
It was a little more boring not having the president there. Now, I've been to previous dinners. I went to the dinners previously with Barack Obama when he was president. And I actually was at the dinner in 2011 when President Barack Obama made fun of Donald Trump, who then had no intention of running for president that he had announced. And that was very uncomfortable.
But the president not there to hear the jokes, like you say, it makes it feel a little bit kind of less exciting that he's not there to kind of sit there and listen to what the comedians and journalists were saying about him. But does this sum up his relationship with the press, doesn't it? That he chose not to go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, but instead was in Pennsylvania. And that's been such a big detail of his 100 days in office, hasn't it?
So, yes, so prior to his announcing he was not coming to the dinner, there were several media organizations who said they would not be hosting the after dinner and before dinner parties that they normally do. They cited various reasons for doing that. People magazine said they weren't getting the same amount of interest, so it could be that the celebrities that normally come to this dinner just weren't interested really in attending for President Trump. And so then President Trump said, well, I'm not coming then. And he hosted a campaign, well, not a campaign rally, since he's not campaigning, but it was a rally in Philadelphia that you referenced, which is very funny because many reporters were forced to go cover that instead of coming to all the parties.
So maybe he got his way in the end. He spoiled the party for all the press. Let's look at his first 100 days in office then. What do you make of it? What's been a success and what do you think has failed?
So his greatest success has been getting Neil Gorsuch, the Supreme Court justice, confirmed. He nominated him from the list. He had a list of judges he said he would consider. If he became president, he'd pick somebody from that list. That person's now been confirmed. And that is a lifelong appointment. And the Supreme Court, as your viewers may remember, is a very important, it's the third branch of government, along with Congress and the president, that presents kind of a balance of powers. So he filled him into a conservative justice's seat, and that has been successful for him and has gone a long way with his supporters, along with his instituting on the social conservatism side what is known as the Mexico City policy, which keeps federal U.S. dollars from going to organizations that promote abortions overseas.
And that's an important one for him, a very controversial policy, but an important one for him in terms of uniting the Republican Party behind him. Not everyone will agree with that, and I know Democratic opposition to that is very strong, but it's important for him to unite the Republican Party behind him with policies like that, isn't it?
Well, it's something that was originated by President Reagan and then supported by George H.W. Bush. Then President Clinton overturned it with an executive order, and then President George W. Bush put it back in, and then President Obama took it back out, and now it's back in under President Trump. So it's one of those things that just it goes back and forth depending on who is in the White House.
When he started his presidency, when he won that shock election, lots of media outlets, lots of people across America, across the world saying this is going to be an utter disaster. The Trump presidency is going to be a disaster. He is a monster. Do you think it's been as bad as people thought it was going to be, or do you think it's been a lot better and he's surprised some people?
I think the people he's probably surprised were the ones who thought that this is the end. These are the people who get what we call Trump derangement syndrome, who thought this is the worst thing that could happen to America. They talk about his election, which was legal and supported by the majority of the Electoral College. They talk about it like it was a hostile regime taking over. But he's come into office. He hasn't filled the government with his loyalists. He's actually been very slow in filling the posts that every president gets to fill, which has actually made it hard for him to accomplish some of what he wants to do. And the healthcare policy that he rolled out was not sufficiently conservative enough for a very key segment of the Republican Party. And that's why he wasn't able to repeal Obamacare in the first 100 days, as he said he would do.
Anneke, thank you so much for talking to us about your experience of the first 100 days. And we'll let you go and get some sleep now. Get out of that dress, back into your pajamas. Thanks very much.
Stay with us here on Breakfast. The headlines are coming up just